Anita,
Here.
Lorna,
Here.
Jenny,
Here.
Bill,
Here.
Lou,
Here.
Megan,
Here.
and do we have our student members with us? Hayden, you out there? Tanner? No? Okay. So again, I apologize. Can we, it is a public meeting. Can we kick it off with the Pledge of Allegiance? This early, pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thanks very much. We just have that one item on the agenda, but before I turn this over to Patrick and Eric, I got a note from Vita toward the end of last week, reminding me that we do need to deal with a contractual issue. I guess with the exception of Lorna, who is a new member, you'll all remember that we are obligated to do an evaluation on Patrick, and his contract is up for renewal July 1st. So we're a little bit late starting. It's an unfortunate tradition that we've established, I guess. This typically gets lost. It gets lost in the shuffle as we progress through the fall. This year, the shuffle's been even deeper. But I will, usually we start off the evaluation. Patrick submits a letter to us that kind of is a self-evaluation where he assesses the goals that he set for himself that we agreed to back in the fall. So I'll talk to Patrick and see where we are in that process, and then it has also been the way we proceeded that the Vice President Lou and I will talk initially, and we'll put a letter together that we share with Ed. I mean, Patrick comes to the board and discusses his performance, and then Lou and I, we'll meet as a board, we'll talk it through, and then Lou and I will try to get a draft of a letter together and share that with the board too. So hopefully we can get all that in by July 1st. Okay, Patrick, it's all yours.
I've been talking with Eric about the circumstances that we're in this year with, with the obvious, and students that had a plan to graduate that they needed to follow through on back before we started to go to remote learning. And due to the circumstances, we wanted the board to hear from Eric this morning and consider approving, offering, another diploma that would be the state set diploma, in addition to the Morse diploma, just for the 1920 school year only, due to the circumstances. So we sent in the packet to you, I believe, or the backup, how many credits a Morse diploma is, and then the state set minimum diploma requirement as well. So I'll let Eric just speak to that a little bit more and talk to you about what we've done so far. So Eric, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Patrick. I think it's important to start where we started with our grading practices once we knew that distance learning was going to be longer than 2 weeks. We looked at the practices and the 2-week sample that we had of kids and how they were doing, and we basically put together a grading practice that was using their mid-semester progress report grade as their baseline score, and allowing them to improve from there as we continued on to distance learning. So in other words, assignments that weren't completed would be marked as incomplete. We'd continue to try to have students complete those assignments, but it would be not marked as a 0, therefore tanking their semester grade. That was kind of the first line of change that we made in the school front. And then from there, we continued on for about a month. We always know that there's a lot of students sort of accelerate into the end, the grand finale or whatnot, and do better as we get closer to the end, as things start, stakes are higher, I guess you'd say. I think we're realizing how much that's true this year, where we're not there. And we usually have a whole host of ways that we get students to get across that finish line. Some of those tactics in distance learning we don't have, and it's been more difficult for us to connect with some of those students. Having said that, about 2 weeks ago, we formed a plan for some seniors who, about a dozen seniors who were at risk of not making the Morse requirements. And we reached out to them, as we had been reaching out throughout, but we had a new offer, and we offered to bring them into school. And once we had the stipulations of the ESY, how you could do that safely, we've done that. We have them working in the school separated, and we've had some good success with that. And we're getting quite a few students across the finish line in terms of what we require for a Morse High School diploma. Having said that, there's some students, just as every year, that won't make it across the finish line. And given in that number might be slightly elevated this year because of distance learning. And so another option, which some other school districts have done, Patrick and I have seen, is offering a state minimum requirement. And I think that's what Patrick was talking about, was in your packet. I should say that this won't work for all students necessarily, because there are still requirements that some students may not meet, for instance, 4 years of English. And so that wouldn't change that requirement. But as you can see, the overall requirements are less, and some of the individual requirements, such as math and science, are less as well. So I think before we kind of open it up to discussion, I think it's important, if we were to consider this, to consider that we have awful lot of students who have put in a huge amount of effort to, especially at the end here with us, to get that Morse High School diploma. So I think if this were to be considered, that I think there should be a dual diploma, and that there's to really honor that, students met our standards, but also offer another avenue for some students to take, under the assumption that the part of them not making this Morse High School diploma is due to circumstances potentially outside of their control.
Do you know the numbers, Eric? How many students are affected?
I do. And that's somewhat mobile, because some of these students are currently right now down in the cafeteria, working on some stuff, and some of them could make it to the Morse High School diploma standard. But some of them who are working on it may not. They may fall short. But for instance, they could get their English credit and fall short in other areas. So then they would be potentially get the standard for the state requirement. diploma. So we're looking at maximum number of 6 students. I know that 2 would potentially have the opportunity to take advantage of this, but 6, it could be upwards to 6.
And this can be limited to, in terms of a decision on whether to adopt or not to adopt this change. This can be limited to this academic year. Is that what I understood you to say? Or
Yeah,
Patrick?
that would be my recommendation because of the circumstances. I mean, we'd have to, next year, we don't know, it's right now, but I think we cross that bridge when we get to it.
Yeah. Okay.
I think otherwise, right now we're happy with the standards that we set, and we feel as though, given good effort on a student's part, we can get them across the finish line. I'd say that this year also, I feel really strongly that that teachers, ed techs have done an excellent job. It's really trying to get students to the point where they could graduate. But there are some conditions that are difficult this year, clearly,
Okay. And just to reiterate, this is not a modification of Morse graduating standards. It's the introduction of a new set of standards for this academic year, right?
Yeah, really the ability to offer, a state set minimum diploma in addition to the Morse diploma. So where a student that has not reached our expectations of 23 credits would not be receiving a Morse diploma. They'd be receiving, if they met the requirements for the state set minimum, that's what they would receive.
Okay. Okay. Any questions of Patrick or Eric?
I have a quick question. So, are there any students, Mr. Varney, I can't remember what you said. Are there some students that just simply won't even make the state standard, or are we considering, well, I guess that's the question. Are there any students who won't even make the state standard?
There are, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think I'd have to look back at my notes to be 100% certain, but I think that 4 years of English that's common between the two sets of standards is what would hitch up almost all of those students who won't make that state set.
So what we're considering is voting on the students who at very least have met the state standard and have shown some effort in these last few weeks to meet that state standard. Is that right? Or are we saying even if you don't meet the state standard, we're letting you walk?
No, that would be just students who have met the state standard, of which some students are showing great effort right now in trying to get to the Morse set of standards, and are going to fall short, or it looks as though they're going to fall short. Some of which are not right now doing this program that we have, and that's a very small number, but had already met the state standard set of requirements. So, and I think that it's important that we would differentiate between a Morse diploma and that of this. I could see a scenario where we offer this to a student and a student would choose to continue to work, whether it be this summer or whatnot, to earn the Morse high school diploma instead. Having said that, what they wouldn't be able to march with their group at the airport in 2 weeks, because that event is strictly for people who are getting awarded a diploma. So, but
that's typical though, right? I mean, there are always a small number of students who are dependent on summer classes to reach graduation requirements.
That's correct.
Yeah. And summer school or the option for those students who want to receive a Morse diploma and want to make up those hours during the summer, that option still exists for those kids, right?
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
hope it will exist.
we craft a plan, and clearly this year, the plan will be different. I mean, we often have summer school. We're not exactly sure the way that's going to look. We, other things that we do is using adult education, or we supplement in online college courses or in-person college courses to get them to that point. They work with their school counselor to develop a plan for that.
Okay.
And then I guess it's also worth noting that some students would choose to do a fifth year. Usually those plans have been made already by now, and we're well aware that they're going to do a fifth year, and we've worked on a schedule for them that works for that.
Any other questions? We are going to have to take a vote on this. So, I mean, it isn't. I don't know. Obviously, where all board members did their high school, but my experience back in New York, as I explained to Patrick earlier last week, I guess, in New York we actually have 3 diplomas in New York. There is the state standard in New York is the higher standard. It's called a Regents diploma, but many kids opt for a local diploma, which is usually the same coursework, but they don't take a set of standardized tests, the Regents exams. And then we have a 3rd diploma in New York for those kids who attend vocational training programs, which again includes both technical and academic, recognizes both technical coursework as well as academic coursework. So it's not unusual to have 2 diplomas, I guess. But
yeah, Steve, I got a question. Sorry, my internet, of course, went out, and so I'm sorry I missed a few minutes. So you may have said this already, Eric, but so when you said everyone's considering, because I know the state standard, I mean, this isn't something, if it exists, it's something we obviously have not used in the past, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I think. I mean, I have, looking back to maybe the late 60s, looked at our requirements in terms of credits, and I don't know compared to state standards, but I would venture a guess that we've always asked for a greater threshold than the state standards. We certainly do now by looking at these 2 documents. And I think that's true of most Maine schools, that they ask for a greater set of standards than the state.
Is this a state standard? Isn't it called a certificate of a completion versus an actual diploma?
I'm not familiar with that. With that.
Yeah, I mean,
I know they use that designation in some standards-based scenarios where a student would go 4 years but didn't meet all the standards. But I don't know if that same sort of label would be true of this.
Okay.
Patrick, do you have any insight on that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that as we talked about some other districts, and then the backup that I sent you, talked about diploma requirements, and that minimum required by the state in order for a SAU to award a high school diploma.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
Yep.
I mean, it's important for me that at least as I understood it and thought about it, that this process does not lessen the Morse standard. This doesn't change the standard of excellence that we apply to that Morse diploma. It just introduces and hopefully just for this year introduces that second opportunity for kids to get recognition for what they've committed 4 years of their life for.
Yeah, and I that well said, Steve, because for as much as the circumstances are just dire, I would agree and hope that this is just a very rare method, and limit it to this year. And yes, we have to look at next year depending on what gets doled out, but it's also an opportunity to consider the future and if this should be in our lap again. But I would agree that I would hope that this is isolated this year, and hopefully we're on track next year.
Thanks, Lorna. Any other comments?
I would just, in light of Lorna's comment, I'd just add that, our goal is always to get students to the Morse diploma. And I think that we'll continue to do that. And, I think ideally we would still have the same power that we do in when we're in person to do that. And yeah, so.
Okay, so I would like a motion that we adopt. Patrick, I need your help here.
Something along the lines of, approve awarding a state set minimum diploma in addition to the Morse diploma for the 1920 school year, something along those lines.
Okay, so state set minimum requirement diploma is the phrase. Okay. So can I get a motion?
So yeah, I'll move to that we are alongside our Morse diploma are as necessary awarding a state minimum required diploma for students who need it in the 2020 academic school year.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Okay, so we have a motion by Lou and a second by Lauren to adopt a state set minimum requirement diploma for the 1920 school year. We'll do a roll call. Anita?
Aye.
Lorna?
Aye.
Lou?
Aye.
Jenny?
Aye.
Megan?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Okay, I vote aye. Tanner, Hayden still aren't out there, I guess. Okay, so thank you very much. Patrick, back to you. That is our only item for the agenda, correct?
Yes. Okay.
So thanks everyone. I again apologize for being late logging in. I am going to talk to Patrick some this week, and we'll try to get that contract evaluation and
well, and yeah, just give me a call. We can do this quickly because obviously under the circumstances, Patrick doesn't have the time to go into the depth he usually does. And obviously I would say, it's pretty obvious how well he's done and others have during this time, this, unprecedented circumstance. Because I will say that while we're not always great at jumping on top of it, obviously it's never been like this, because it's around February into March when we start doing it, and it's just when all this happens. So apologize for that, Patrick, but we'll get it straightened out, and we'll get it done here in June. Thanks.
Yep.
And just one other thing that I'll mention, and I'll talk with Eric after this, is I think Jen asked the question this morning, is with graduation coming up, we always invite you, and you're still invited this year. I just need some more detail about where we would put you in your car. on that runway, so that you can see and you can hear if you'd like to attend. So I'll get those details out to you soon. Okay.
It's all about what kind of car you're going to
Thank
be
you.
driving.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Aye.
So we need a motion to adjourn. Don't go away yet.
Sorry.
Oh, Anita's
All right,
mo-
I move to adjourn.
Okay, we have a motion by Lou. We need a second.
Second.
Second by Bill. Gonna have to do the roll call. Sorry, Anita. I think Anita's left us. Lorna,
Aye.
Lou,
Aye.
Jenny,
Aye.
Megan,
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Okay, and I vote aye as well. Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.